Welcome to 5 Good Minutes.
You're listening to today's inspirational message, looking at the Messianic Psalms with Brady Randall.
As we enter Holy Week in preparation for considering the suffering, cross, death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, today we come to Psalm 69, and this is a great psalm to reflect on the entirety of this week, and I think it's especially appropriate. This psalm is called or considered a Messianic psalm, which is a psalm that foreshadows and embodies Jesus, who was and is the Messiah, and the Messiah is God's anointed ruler. And this psalm speaks to the ministry and suffering of King David, the human author, who was also God's representative, and Jesus, who is God's ultimate representative. But today I want us to consider the desperation of this psalm, and we can see it right here in the very beginning, because I think it's something that all of us can relate to. And here's what we read in verses 1 through 4. Consider David's plea and cry for rescue. Save me, O God, for the waters have come to my neck. I sink into the miry depths where there is no foothold. I have come into deep waters. The floods engulf me. I am worn out, calling for help. My throat is parched. My eyes fail, looking for my God. Those, and he goes on to say why he's feeling this way in verse 4, those who hate me without reason outnumber the hairs of my head. Many are my enemies without cause, those who seek to destroy me. I am forced to restore what I did not steal. Now, I want you just for a moment to think of your own enemies currently, or maybe even enemies you've had in the past. And my guess is it doesn't rise to the level that David is talking about here. But I do want you to remember or consider right now that right now around the world, there are Christians who are hated simply for being a follower of Jesus. In fact, there are those who are being killed for following Jesus even as we speak. They are hated without cause. When I was a young kid, I used to ride the bus to school. And I was a quiet kid who kind of kept to myself on the back of the bus. And there were these two older kids who sat near the back of the bus where I was sitting, and they began to pick on me. And it started out kind of innocent enough. It started out verbally. I tried to ignore them. But then it got physical. And at its worst, they would pull my hat over my head, and they began to spit on me. And no one on the bus came to my rescue. My cry for help was to my parents, who eventually got the principal involved and eventually got those kids kicked off the bus. But in my first grader little mind, those boys hated me without cause, with no reason. And I was totally helpless against them. And maybe you feel like you're in a desperate situation right now. It could be a situation in work or your family. It could be because of your own doing. But for King David, he had nowhere to turn but God. And listen to his desperation a few verses later, starting in verse 14. Rescue me from the mire. Do not let me sink. Deliver me from those who hate me, from the deep waters. Do not let the flood waters engulf me, or the depths swallow me up, or the pit close its mouth on me. Answer me, Lord, out of the goodness of your love. In your great mercy, turn to me. Do not hide your face from your servant. Answer me quickly, for I am in trouble. Come near and rescue me. Deliver me because of my foes. This is a picture of feeling submerged in the water, almost drowning. It makes me think of a vacation that I had when I was in Florida when I was a kid. I was playing in the sand up to my waist, playing in the water up to my waist, and there was a riptide. And in that moment, I was swept out from where I was standing in the sand and in the water, from the muck, and it felt like I was being washed out into the sea. And I screamed for help, and fortunately for me, my daddy rescued me by reaching out his hand and saving me. And I want to invite you today that even in this moment to do the same thing. That for whatever the reason might be that you may be in need of rescue from circumstances, or especially your own sin. And I also want to say that God doesn't always rescue from our circumstances. He often uses those circumstances. But that you can cry out to your daddy in heaven for rescue. For God's rescue, although it may feel slow, is never late. And his ultimate rescue offered in Jesus Christ will be full and complete forever.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.